If you're anything like me, then you probably have a bunch of side projects and dream hobbies and interests that you've started and abandoned over the years, and probably there's more of them than you care to admit. Things like starting to learn a new instrument, a new language, changing a gym routine, I don't know, learning to cook for your friends, whatever thing you thought it was a really good idea at the beginning, just to find out days or hours in that actually it wasn't as glam as you thought it was. And I'm guilty of that. So I've spent a lot of time thinking about it and trying to find solutions to mitigate it. Now, if you're like me and you have a tendency to beat yourself over this kind of stuff, then start by acknowledging yourself for the many projects which I'm sure you have completed in your life. Things that you've applied to yourself to diligently and you've taken to a good completion. Now, that being said, when people bail out, jetpack on their projects prematurely, they rationalize it as it being not of interest, maybe not of enough value, or maybe not as enjoyable as they thought it would be. And I have a problem with that. I keep wondering and asking myself, how can I make sure that that's not just a backwards rationalization, a way to resolve a cognitive dissonance? We don't like to admit that we've failed, that we were wrong about something, so we rationalize it as it not being sufficient. There's actually one of Aesop's fable, I hope I'm saying his name right, the fox and the grapes, and this fox is trying to reach grapes in a vine, and she tries and fails, and eventually just declares that they would have been sour anyway. And I find that funny. I learned as a kid and it stuck with me, and now I see wisdom in that. And I haven't found a very good answer to that yet. Anything other than perhaps realizing that over the years I find myself asking the question, what if, in respect to some things more than to others. But what I did get good at is catching myself on my excuses, on my lies to myself. And off the bat, things like I don't have time and I don't have money for it are definitely a red flag for me, because if that's the case, then it's just not a priority. Simple as. Time and money are resources that no matter how we spend, somehow evaporate anyway. So unless we prioritize them on the things that really matter, things don't move. And then there's the more sophisticated ones, like I just don't have the motivation for it. And you know, I've battled with that one for quite some time. And even now, in the current situation, trying to make use of the time available and the resources available, I still find myself consuming stuff, devouring, going through endless amounts of articles and blog posts and YouTube videos and Netflix series. And I resolved to almost virtually cut out any possible distraction, and I still found myself doing anything to evade the so-called work, in things like reading more, meditating, and walking outside more. And I found that really funny, and ultimately what I realized is that this whole idea about expecting and waiting for one day when motivation randomly falls in my lap and springs me into action is just a completely messed up paradigm to look at these things. I remember hearing a story from Sam Harris in his meditation app, and it was about how one of his days was going extremely badly, problem after problem. And then he complained to one of his friends over lunch about these problems, and she really called out the fact that the way he was sort of reporting to all this stuff is as if one day problems are going to magically disappear and you're going to land in this no problems land where everything is squeaky clean and running smooth. And I felt that was very much the case of how I perceive and understand motivation. So that's another excuse out the window. You might think at this point, and I know I have too, that there's got to be a reason that you are different, that maybe you haven't got the right character traits, the right personality traits, and I am guilty of that as well. I thought maybe I'm just not conscientious enough, maybe I'm too neurotic, the whole 5 personality traits. And maybe I am. Maybe there is another set that's more optimally wired and set out to apply oneself to the task and to deliver it in a superior manner, if you will. But even if that was the case, I've mentioned it before, how would that be any helpful for those who don't have those traits by default? If anything, I feel like that could become a self-fulfilling prophecy. It could become a reinforcing belief that you then end up acting out, and I just don't think that that's a good strategy. That's my beef with psychometric tests, with personality tests. I would rather try and act out something that I desire to be rather than risk accidentally acting out something that I look like I might be because some questionnaire is telling me that I am. Convoluted, a slight digression, let's get back on topic. So how can this video help you now? I'm hoping is to generate a paradigm shift, to make you realize that some of the common excuses and reasons that you run for when you slip and give up on a project, on a passion, on an interest, might just be excuses, and that's really this whole idea of grass is greener on the other side is something that really you can experience firsthand on your own skin. I mean, it's happened to me time and time again, to the point where, you know the saying, if the problem is always out there, then maybe the problem is here. Well, that was pretty much me. So to that end, there's heaps of information out there, loads of articles, loads of videos, which if you do end up consuming, watching, then that's procrastinating, you have been warned. But some of the ones that I've come across and found extremely useful and memorable are setting up systems from the offset. What I mean by that is creating a way to automate decisions before you're faced with making them, because the state in which you set out to accomplish something and the state in which you have to deal with that anew every time are going to be different things. So essentially what you're doing is you're trying to minimize as much of that friction up front. Other useful stuff, creating plans, establishing goals. There's going to be a video specifically about establishing goals, specific SMART goals, measurable, actionable, realistic, time bound. Having interim milestones, having narrow focus, having metrics, knowing, gauging the progress towards the aim. Jordan Peterson says that the way we're wired doesn't allow us psychophysiologically to experience good emotions without having an aim and without having a sense of getting closer to that aim. And that's why having goals and having milestones is paramount. It's of utter importance. So really all this stuff is about consistency, and it's about commitment. It's about following through over a long period of time, as opposed to the stuff that I mentioned in the previous videos about getting started, overcoming the initial inertia, blockages, anxieties, and whatnot. But if you think about it, something that you apply yourself to diligently over a long period of time is just a chain of more of that same stuff. So in a sense, all the stuff that we've discussed before and covered here is applicable to every single one of these single events. The 2-minute rule, the 15-minute rule, the do something principle, the 3-second rule. I haven't brought that one up yet. So really, from a framework perspective, all we're trying to do here is make the game more fun, more winnable, with more new challenges, with new goals, and with feedback, which are preconditions for a game to stay engaging and for you to want to play it. But I think that one aspect that all these mentors and writers seem to overlook consistently is that of the communities, is that of the external support, the realization that we can't do it all alone. If you look at the successful artists and creatives and sports people, you will always inevitably see loads of gratitude for the people in their life, for their support network. And this is something that in literature, it looks to me like it gets overlooked quite systematically. The idea of having a mentor, a support network, a group of people who have done it and who believe in you and who can help reinforce that reality. Because what is this? It's essentially throwing yourself into a new situation, a completely uncertain place for you. And then you have this belief and this hope that you're going to pull through, but without a mentor, with someone who's paved the way, who's proved that this is possible, without people who can constantly reinforce this reality and keep it alive for you, it's no surprise to me that we give up on our goals so often. It's almost like we start them at an individual level and we never get the chance to blossom them into something that's bigger than that level of self, something that can engage, if not help, communities and people around it. And it's funny that when that happens, the people engaged in it are also the ones who engage you back in it when you've lost it. And so I think that this is an aspect that's really important and that gets overlooked quite a lot. It seems to me that we're trying to do a lot, perhaps too much on our own. I know for a fact that I am guilty of that. And there's a very good saying goes, run alone, run fast, run together, run far. And this is, I think, a cornerstone realization for me, and one that's really helping me follow through with my objectives and with my goals, and to minimize the pile of projects that get abandoned and forgotten about. So I hope this has been useful. Thanks for listening, and I shall see you tomorrow. In the meantime, like, comment, share it with someone who you think might find it valuable, and look after yourselves. Bye.